discover the incredible moment she transformed what 7 expert mechanics couldn't fix. Emma Thompson stood amid the silence of her father's auto repair shop, a chilling emptiness wrapping around her like a thick fog. The walls, once vibrant with life, now felt muted, shrouded in dust specks dancing in the dim light. This space, a sanctuary of grease and laughter, had turned into an altar of her father's absence. He had been her anchor, the one who stirred her dreams of racing cars, and now the weight of loss bore down heavily on her shoulders, squeezing out her determination like oil from a used filter. Thunder rumbled, reverberating through the cracked tin roof, as raindrops tapped insistently against the windows. Emma exhaled slowly, the sound mingling with the drumming rain, each droplet echoing her own uncertainty. Cleaning up felt like a betrayal, but she knew something had to change. Her father's legacy, tethered to this shop, felt hauntingly fragile, a glass engine block ready to shatter. She longed to breathe new life into the space, to infuse it with her father's spirit, but could she silence the creeping fear of inadequacy? As she began to wipe down the counters, a small glimmer caught her eye from under a rusty workbench. Curiosity piqued, Emma crawled beneath and retrieved an old, tattered journal, its pages yellowed and frayed. Flipping it open, she felt her heart race. The sketches and blueprints within were filled with her father's meticulous designs, his revolutionary engine that could change everything. It was as if she held the remnants of a dream, a lighthouse in a storm. Yet the flicker of hope ignited a furious whirlwind of self-doubt. What if she failed? What if the community that barely accepted her as a mechanic turned against her for trying to step into her father's shoes? Before she could dwell too long on these treacherous thoughts, her reverie was interrupted by the roar of a truck approaching. Dread filled her. The local mechanics would come to check on the shop, men who had always looked down on her, those who believed a woman in this world was an anomaly, a misplaced wrench in an otherwise perfect toolbox. Just last week she overheard them scoff. She can't even change a tire right. Gritting her teeth, Emma braced herself for their visit. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. As the men sauntered in, their laughter ricocheted off the walls like a verbal assault.
One of them, Jake, the self-appointed king of mechanics in Maplewood, swaggered toward her, his eyes glimmering with derision. "You still trying to play mechanic, Emma?" he mockingly asked. The laughter of the others stung like a rigid air wrench. Determination surged within her. She wasn't going to back down. She could feel her father's spirit urging her on. But confronting those men and redefining their perception of her felt monumental, like climbing a mountain that had loomed high over her since she was a child. She clutched the journal tighter, its pages a reminder that courage had once thrived in this space. The storm outside intensified, washing over the shop in sheets, mirroring the tempest of her emotions. She had come so far, but was on the cusp of losing everything. Would she unveil her father's dream to face their scorn, or retreat, weighed down by shame and fear? The looming showdown screamed at her, and she felt irrevocably teetering on either side. In that charged moment, Emma lingered at the threshold of potential victory or pitiful defeat, and the choice she made could seal her fate forever. The laughter of the mechanics rang in her ears like taunts reverberating through her mind. Emma inhaled deeply, fighting the urge to retreat into the shadows of the shop, to blend into the walls and become invisible. But deep inside, a different voice emerged, one she hadn't heard in a long time, the voice of her father, urging her to rise, to embrace the fire of her passion. She set the journal on the counter, the cover worn, but the potential it held tethered to her heart. The design sketched within hinted at an opportunity, her opportunity. Instead of seeing it as a burden, she began recalibrating the weight of expectation into a sturdy foundation. The tumultuous energy from the storm outside mirrored the storm within her, yet instead of feeling overwhelmed, she decided to harness it. "Jake," she called out, her voice steady and unmistakably clear. The laughter ceased abruptly, the men shifting their attention toward her, surprise painted across their faces. "You think I'm just playing mechanic? How about I prove you wrong?" A flicker of audacity ignited within her. For too long, she had accepted the role of the outcast, and with each mocking glance and derisive snort, she had internalized their disbelief. But today, she resolved to dismantle those perceptions, brick by brick. She could feel a purpose rekindling. It was time to transform. Jake stepped closer, an incredulous smirk plastered on his face. "And how do you propose to do that? You can't even keep your shop clean." Ignoring the jab, Emma's gaze locked onto the blueprints in the journal, visualizing not just her father's dream, but her burgeoning ambition. "Let's have a little challenge," she proposed, the idea blooming with confidence. "You and your crew versus me and my father's engine design. We race our pieces."
If my engine outperforms yours, you acknowledge that I'm a mechanic. If I lose, I'll shut this shop down for good. A ripple of tension swept through the group. It was a bold move, one that could either shatter or solidify her in this world. She knew the odds were stacked against her, but for the first time, fear ignited a ferocity within rather than a paralyzing grip. The mechanics exchanged glances, surprise giving way to a challenge they couldn't resist. "All right, Emma," Jake chuckled, accepting the challenge, his bravado returning full force. "But don't cry when you lose." Determined not to let the looming storm outside mirror her internal chaos, Emma retreated to her workbench, diving into her father's designs. She meticulously studied every detail, every angle, her fingers brushing against the delicate paper, as though channeling her father's spirit through her hands. This was no longer about just proving them wrong. It was about reigniting the fire that had once burned brightly in their shop. She was no longer the girl quietly fixing tires. She was a serious contender, ready to reclaim her legacy. As she worked into the night, repairs, calculations, and dreams fused into a singular focus. Emma felt her own skills sharpen, her innate instincts honed through years spent in this sacred space. She unearthed hidden nuances in her father's designs, solutions springing forth like the spark plugs that ignited the engines he so deeply loved. But foam of excitement surged, soon to be couched in doubt. What if it wasn't enough? The men's doubt had settled in her mind like a stubborn rust, and as she cranked the engine for the first time in solitude, she felt the weight of their skepticism loom like a specter over her shoulder. Would her engine roar to life as fervently as she hoped, or would the echoes of all her insecurities threaten to drown out her ambitions before she even began? With renewed determination, Emma watched at the edge of her father's workspace, the colors of her dreams clashing against the muted tones of her fears. Tomorrow would bring the race, and with it an acceptance or rejection that could shape her forever. As she vowed not to let fear dictate her future, one thing became clear. This was just the beginning of the fight, the moment where she would truly understand what lay within her. The question remained, how far was she willing to go to claim her identity as a mechanic, and was she prepared for the consequences of that revelation? A sliver of dawn barely pierced through the cracked windows of the shop, but Emma was already wide awake, her heart galloping with anticipation. The engine design was sprawled out in front of her, an array of lines and ideas now etched vividly in her mind. Each component seemed to whisper secrets as she fine-tuned every detail, infusing logic with ingenuity.
The chaotic whirring of the coffee machine mingled with the muffled sounds of nature awakening outside, creating a symphony that urged her forward. Emma leaned in close to the workbench, every oiled bolt and polished surface igniting memories of her father instructing her with patience only a genuine passion can foster. This was different from the isolating darkness of self-doubt that had plagued her for years. She was a bridge between memory and aspiration. As she meticulously threaded components together, the moments spent learning from her father swelled within her like a powerful tide, anchoring her resolve amidst the uncertainty. With the final pieces in place, she stepped back and surveyed her work. The engine sat in front of her, robust and defiant, a testament to her labor. It was not just any engine. This was her engine, an embodiment of her defiance and her father's legacy. She felt a swell of pride, mingled with a trepidation that made her heart race, the looming race against Jake. At that moment, Emma recognized something stirring within her. It was not merely a pursuit for validation from the mechanics. This was about reclaiming her worth, solidifying her identity as a mechanic. She realized that the challenge was never just about proving Jake or anyone else wrong. It was about confronting her own limitations, dissecting the monstrous self-doubt that had held her captive for far too long. The clock inched closer to the hour of the race, its ticking sharpening her focus. She reviewed her strategy in her mind, reassessing the mechanics of her design, calculating strategies to generate optimum performance.
She had observed the boys in the shop, noted the nuances of their conversations, and recognized their reliance on intimidation. She would harness every ounce of her technical knowledge and intuition to forge an advantage, a tactic that not only proved her mechanical savvy, but also her courage in the face of disparaging rivalries. Stepping away from her workbench, Emma took a deep breath, letting the scent of motor oil and gasoline fill her lungs. It was the smell of determination, of an opportunity waiting to be unleashed. She owned the space around her, and for the first time she felt comfortable in her skin, a layer of insecurity peeling away with each moment spent preparing. When the time arrived to face Jake and the crew, the atmosphere crackled with tension. Engines revved and the mechanics circled like hawks, their narrowed eyes scanning her for cracks in her confidence. Emma's heart thudded loudly against her chest, but resolve layered over fear as she stepped to the center, the weight of her father's legacy in her hands. "Ready to race, Emma?" Jake's taunt ricocheted across the lot, dripping with disdain. But instead of crumbling, Emma found strength in his words. They were a reminder of what she had to prove, but more importantly, who she had to prove it to.
"Yes," she declared, her voice clear, shaking off the clawing doubts that threatened to ensnare her once again. She settled into the driver's seat, fingers twitching in anticipation. There was no turning back now. She was on the brink of claiming her identity. With the engines roaring to life, the world around her faded into a blur. The moment had come, but something deep in Emma's gut told her this race was more than just a confrontation with Jake. It was a showdown with her own latent fears and an acceptance of the person she was destined to become. But as the flag was raised and the engines roared, one looming question stayed in Emma's mind. What if she lost? This was only the beginning of a much bigger battle, one driven not just by competition, but an intense exploration of her own boundaries, her own fears, and an impending confrontation with the relentless force of doubt lurking just beneath the surface. As the flag fell, Emma's fingers instinctively tightened around the steering wheel, the engine's roar mirroring the tempest brewing inside her. The car surged forward, a jolt of adrenaline firing through her veins as the world turned into a cacophony of speed and noise. Speeding alongside Jake, her eyes narrowed not just on the road, but on the sheer enormity of the challenge ahead, a bold confrontation with every fear she had harbored. The pavement blurred beneath her tires, but it was the suffocating pressure of eyes watching her that threatened to overwhelm. She could feel the weight of Jake's disdain coiling around her like a serpent, ready to strike. Every turn of the wheel was a battle against not only the landscape, but also the internal landscape of her mind, where echoes of doubt lingered. "Stay steady, stay focused," she coached herself, channeling her father's voice through what felt like a dense fog of anxiety. Each gear shift became a conduit for her determination, a physical representation of the mental resolve she had been building. As she navigated the twists and turns of the track with growing confidence, a revelation dawned upon her. This was not merely about proving Jake or any of the others wrong. This was her moment to reclaim her sense of self, a catalytic leap into the unknown. Just ahead, Jake's car pulled slightly ahead on the curve, and a surge of frustration rose within her, threatening to push her to an emotional brink. "No, I won't let him define this," she murmured, asserting control over her racing thoughts. The realization struck her like a lightning bolt. The real race was against her own fears, not just against Jake's talent in the shop. She felt the rise of empowerment as she forged a path through the chaos, setting her trajectory for something greater than competition. As they approached the straightaway, Emma recalled the strategic adjustment she had made to the engine, a unique tuning that allowed for optimal acceleration.
She shifted gears with a fierce determination, feeling the machine respond with a growl like a beast awakened. The rush of power was intoxicating, transforming her confidence from merely an abstract wish into a palpable force. In that fleeting moment, she caught Jake's glance, hatred and surprise entangled in his eyes. The sensation was electric, sweeping through her like the wind through her hair, an acknowledgement of her strength where she had once felt none. She could almost touch the boundary of her limits, the defining line between who she thought she was and who she could actually become. But with the finish line looming into view, Emma's heart raced with a chilling thought. What if the edge of this victory was merely the precipice of something far beyond? The finishing line was not just a mere conclusion, but a doorway into a new chapter of self-discovery. Just as she began to close the gap with Jake, an unexpected mechanical whine pierced through the roar of the engine, sending a wave of dread crashing over her. Her heart plummeted. Was it her design faltering? The fear coiled back, more insidious than before.
As Jake splayed his smug grin across his face, the realization hit her hard. She might not win this race after all. It could unravel everything she had fought to build. Defeat felt as tangible as the asphalt below, not just in terms of placement, but in authenticity. What did it mean to be a mechanic if her creation, her identity, failed her at the most crucial moment? And as the finish flag beckoned, the question that loomed was no longer simply about the race. Instead, Emma wondered, what does losing truly mean when every failure is merely a step towards becoming the person she was destined to be? The engine sputtered, the noise of despair threatening to swallow her, breaking her resolve as she barreled towards what felt like an inevitable conclusion. But then, amidst the chaos, a spark of determination ignited. Would she embrace defeat or redefine what it meant to win? The mechanical whine persisted, grating against her resolve. Emma steeled herself, gripping the wheel tighter, each jolt from the car a reminder of the intricacies of both her creation and her own psyche. The fear of failure, which had clawed at her from the start, whispered mercilessly in her ear. What if this was it? The culmination of all her hard work, brought low by a single flaw. She struck back against the mounting despair, anchoring her mind to the memories of late nights spent emotionally immersed in engine specs. As the race car neared the finish line, Jake's car remained steadfast ahead, and her heart thudded painfully in her chest. An internal dialogue erupted, the parts of her that valued rational analysis and the side enthralled by raw emotional heat clashed fiercely. Between the cacophony of racing machines and the throbbing heartbeat of doubt, a single question arose. What did it mean to be a mechanic?
In that moment, Emma realized her battle extended far beyond this track or this race. The true conflict lay in her quest for mastery over her fears, not just the technical skills, but the unwavering belief in her talent. A flicker of inspiration sparked within. What if the mechanical failure wasn't defeat, but an opportunity to innovate? Deciding then to redirect her energy, she began to analyze the vibrations through the steering wheel, feeling for misalignments or irregularities. She had always told herself that mechanics was as much about intuition as it was about technical skill. An idea formed, sending her adrenaline into overdrive. Could she compensate for whatever was wrong within her car's design, utilizing more than just technical fixes? With each heartbeat, she strategized, navigating the limitation of her vehicle. She could almost hear her father encouraging her to embrace the unexpected, to trust herself, an empowering echo from her past that reverberated through the cabin. For Emma, the car wasn't just metal and machines. It was an expression of her identity. Yes, it faltered, but like her, it could be redefined. As they hurtled towards the finish line, a thought crystallized in her mind. Losing was beneath her. True power lay in redefining the essence of both triumph and defeat. Instead of allowing despair to engulf her, she embraced the chaos as a canvas on which she could write her own narrative. The engine coughed again, but this time, instead of dread, she acted. Adjusting the throttle in anticipation of another dip in speed, Emma sank deep into her mechanic's knowledge, envisioning adjustments, recalibrations, her mental gears whirring to life. She focused solely on regaining that missing power, pressing down hard on the accelerator in tandem with an unexpected shift of her weight. With a startling surge of energy, she felt the car pulse back to life. It was then that a liberating sensation washed over her. The bitterness of Jake's grimace in the rearview faded as she surged forward, gripping the fleeting moment of connection with machinery like a lifeline. Though the finish line beckoned, she was not merely racing for victory. She was carving her destiny, channeling her failures into a powerful engine of resilience. But even as she gained speed, met with a vibrancy she hadn't felt before, the ever-present tension loomed. The finish flag was nearer, but would it signify a new beginning or a reiteration of her past failures? Just then, a shout from Jake cut through the air, taunting and mocking. The race was shifting, and the stakes were rising higher with each moment. What would the closing moment reveal? Would the fallout redefine her journey once more? Emma's heart pounded with both dread and excitement. The time to confront the ensnaring past was at hand. The finish line loomed closer, an ephemeral slice of hope that coursed through Emma's veins like the fuel in her engine.
As the crowd roared in a deafening cheer, Jake's taunts morphed into a distant echo, drowned out by the roaring crescendo of adrenaline. Each bump on the track jolted her into sharper focus. This was her moment to seize control and reshape her narrative. A surge of doubt tried to wedge itself back in, but she recognized it for what it was, an echo of past insecurities. Emma had spent years locking horns with her fears, dismantling them like the engines she so carefully rebuilt. The voice whispered to her again, "What if you fail?" But this time it lacked the authority it once held. She made a conscious choice to reframe that question. What if you learn? The acceleration felt euphoric. She adjusted her grammar, translating her technical understanding into a language of instinct, fine-tuning her connection with the car's demands. No longer was she simply racing against a clock. She was in a dialogue with her creation, listening, responding, adapting. Suddenly, a shudder rippled through the steering wheel. It was subtle, but it stirred something deep within her. She had studied how each component interacted, but now she also felt the soul of the vehicle. A decision pushed its way to the forefront. Instead of merely attempting to expel the tension, she would confront it head-on. Drawing on her father's lessons of resilience, Emma visualized the entire process, the energy transfer, the gear systems in harmony. She mentally retraced her steps, recalling the trials and errors experienced in the garage. With a deep breath, she integrated her technical acumen with the intuitive understanding she had nurtured. What if the flaws of the vehicle could lead to breakthroughs in her own performance? As she executed her plan, she pressed her foot down harder on the accelerator. The engine responded with a magnificent roar, a primal growl that sent shivers down her spine. The deafening power reminded her that imperfections do not signify failure, but rather the foundation of growth. She maneuvered past the side of Jake's car, their tires almost brushing against one another, a physical embodiment of competition, yet a cooperative dance of survival. Emma's vision narrowed, hyper-focusing on the finish line. The rush of wind through the open window acted as a clarion call, reverberating within her. Each second that ticked away fostered a growing realization. She possessed strength that surpassed technical knowledge. She was learning, evolving, and adapting even in the heat of adversity. But the moment of triumph was clouded by dread. What if this surge of success unraveled just as suddenly as it built? As she neared the finish line, the road ahead seemed to shimmer, an illusion, obscured by the specters of doubt and insecurity that crept back into her mind. She had embraced a higher potential, yet the fear of it slipping away plagued her. Yet the truth echoed more profoundly with each heartbeat. She could not falter now.
The culmination of her journey in battles had forged resilience within her that no mere mechanical flaw could shatter. True victory wasn't just about crossing that line, it was about the relentless commitment to growth and achievement that defined her. And as the checkered flag fluttered in her peripheral vision, she felt it, a clarion call that signaled not just a win or loss, but the dawn of an entirely new journey, fraught with the unknown, yet ripe with potential. The moment of reckoning charged through her, escalating her anticipation. What awaited her after this challenge? Would she embrace the implications of success, or would the weight of past failures threaten to bind her once more? As she crossed the finish line, the new uncertainties loomed, tantalizing and terrifying. Emma knew she stood not just on the threshold of victory, but also at the opening of a deeper confrontation with herself. The next part of her journey awaited. The roar of the crowd still echoed in her ears as Emma pulled into the pit area, the adrenaline of the race slowly fading into a cool haze of exhilaration and exhaustion. Victory tasted sweet, but it was tinged with a bittersweet aftertaste of uncertainty that lingered in her throat. The moment she stepped out of the car, her heart raced, not just from the rush of the race, but from the looming questions that now hung over her like storm clouds. "Emma," a voice cut through the noise, jolting her back to reality. It was Sarah, her mentor, who had tracked her progress with steady eyes. "Incredible driving, but let's discuss the changes we need to tackle next. We've got a lot of work to do if you want to seize this opportunity moving forward." The immediate thrill of her victory was challenged by the reality of expectations now resting heavily upon her shoulders. She realized that this success had opened doors, but with those doors came responsibilities she had never anticipated. Could she sustain this momentum, or would she fall back into the shadows of doubt? As they walked toward the makeshift garage, Sarah began outlining the immediate adjustments to enhance the car's performance. "We need the suspension fine-tuned, and I noticed a slight misalignment during the race. It can affect your handling significantly." Each technical detail felt like a new hill she had to climb, a reminder that while she had crossed the finish line, the race towards improvement had only just begun. Emma listened intently, her mind racing to keep up with the details. She nodded, absorbing the feedback, yet inside her mind bubbled an anxiety that demanded expression. "But what if I can't keep up? What if one mistake sends everything crashing down?" "What if you embrace the mistake and make it your teacher?" Sarah replied, her voice steady. Those words hit Emma with the force of revelation. The idea that mistakes were not merely setbacks but stepping stones towards greater mastery began to weave itself into her mindset.
She'd spent years avoiding failure, distancing herself from inadequacies, but what if leaning into them could unlock an even deeper understanding? "Let's reconfigure the approach," Emma suggested, surprising herself with the quiet confidence in her voice. "I want to experiment with the handling first, see how much further I can push the limits, and learn from whatever comes next." A sharp smile crossed Sarah's face, an acknowledgement of the shift she was witnessing. "Exactly. This is your moment to mold your style. But let's set a foundation first. Before you dive into layers, we need a solid core, a fundamental grasp of the changes we want." With their collaboration established, Emma found renewed resolve beyond racing. It was about honing her skills, adapting theories into practice, and ultimately defining her identity as a mechanic and racer. This was not just another race, it was an opportunity for self-discovery and mastery. Yet, beneath her budding determination lay a current of apprehension. Would the mechanics of her own evolution mess with her racing instincts? She could feel past failures creeping in, whispering that the stakes were higher now. The need to prove her capability gnawed at her, a constant reminder of the road ahead. As she immersed herself in the process of learning, Emma noticed that each adjustment, each moment spent in the garage, began to unveil strengths she never knew she had. Her conversations with Sarah morphed into collaborative explorations, and she felt her resolve solidify within the framework of her work. But as she carefully rehearsed her plan for the next race in her mind, a new thought emerged that sent a thrill of fear through. What if this season would be more than a test of her skills on the track? What if it became a crucible of everything she believed about herself? With a determined face, she turned to Sarah. "Let's make this deeper than racing. I want to cultivate a way of thinking, a mindset that can breathe life into both the car and my skills." "Ready for a broader challenge, are we?" Sarah smiled. "Then let's see how the heart of a mechanic can shape the soul of a racer. But beware, these challenges may make you confront parts of yourself you've kept buried." As Emma steeled her mind for the journey ahead, she sensed the swell of potential before her, uncertain yet promising. Would embracing both her racing and mechanic passions unleash a new level of her abilities? Or would this endeavor force her to face the aspects of failure she had evaded for too long? Determined to find out, she set her sights on the road ahead, ready to embark on a new race that would redefine her very essence. Little did she know, the real challenge lay just around the corner, testing everything she had come to know. The following morning brought with it the crisp air of early autumn and a resolve that shimmered like dew on the grass. Emma pulled into the garage with a singular purpose. She could feel the weight of expectation still perched on her shoulders like an unrecognized passenger. But today, it was a passenger she had elected to embrace rather than evade. "Today's focus is on understanding," she told herself as she slid out of her car, her fingers brushing over the smooth metal, each touch igniting her mind with thoughts of the work ahead. "Ready to dive in?" Sarah's voice rang out, and Emma turned to see her mentor approaching, toolbox in hand, the sunlight catching the hint of silver in her hair. The warmth of Sarah's presence steadied Emma against the anxiety that threatened to bubble up again. "I want to dissect my failures," Emma replied, gauging Sarah's reaction. "I need to know each flaw in that last race and how to rework my strategy from the ground up." "That's the spirit," Sarah said, her eyes lighting up. "But be prepared to explore not just the mechanics, but also your instincts. Understanding how you respond under pressure is just as crucial." As they began, Emma transformed her approach, moving from mere observation to active engagement. She climbed underneath the car, hands muddied, grimacing slightly as she found the misalignment Sarah had mentioned earlier. Her fingers danced across each component, as if learning a new language: suspension, steering, and tires, murmuring secrets she had only glimpsed before. "Isn't it interesting how the intricacies of the car mirror the intricacies of racing?" Sarah mused from her perch outside the car. "Every component interacts with the others, and any misstep can lead to a fault on the track." Emma sat back, a spark igniting in her mind as she processed that statement. Racing had always felt like an isolated endeavor, the car becoming an extension of herself. But now, understanding the machine laid the groundwork for better collaboration. "Exactly," Emma replied, now feeling a deeper connection to her craft. "Each element speaks to me,
but I need to ensure my reactions don't just stem from racing instinct. They need to be informed choices based on what I've learned. They spent a day engaged in a riveting exchange of knowledge. Emma absorbed information, measured strategies, and reflected critically on her errors. Each turn of a wrench and each adjustment heightened her awareness of possible outcomes, illuminating avenues she hadn't considered. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, Emma felt an intense shift within herself. Gone was the frantic energy that had plagued her since victory. In its place lingered a quiet confidence, a blend of knowledge and intuitive understanding. But as she wiped her brow and eyed the car, she realized there was still one major concern looming over her, a racing event only days away. The growing anxiety tightened its grip around her throat. What if I lead myself to failure again? Everyone is watching. What if I'm not enough? Sarah appeared beside her. You are enough, Emma.
But remember, it's not the outcome that defines you. It's how you choose to grow from whatever happens. What if this growth reveals that I'm not cut out for this? The thought slipped from Emma before she could catch it, resonating painfully in the echo of their previous successes. Each race you challenge is a point of growth. It's not just about winning. It's about the journey, the resistance, and what lies on the other side. Failure can lead to more profound realizations than success ever will. A sense of unearthing dawned on Emma. If she could transform her failures into lessons, perhaps she could reshape her identity entirely. But was she ready to confront potential setbacks head-on? It was one thing to speak of growth. It was another to embody it amidst looming pressures. Determined, she took a deep breath and faced the car once again. This race will not just be about proving myself. It will be about proving to myself that I have the resilience to learn, to adapt, and to evolve. But as she began envisioning the upcoming race, a thought gripped her with icy fingers. What if confronting her fears meant facing a competition that would test every ounce of her newfound understanding? The moment of truth was approaching. Would she rise to the occasion, or would she surrender to the crushing weight of doubt? Often, it is the unknown that ignites the fiercest battles within us. The chill of early morning wrapped around Emma like a cloak as she stepped into the garage the next day, carrying with her the growing resolve from the previous evening's revelations. Today wasn't just about fine-tuning the car, but about wrestling with her newly formed mindset. It was a battle with her own fears that she felt less equipped to handle. As she approached the car, a wave of uncertainty crashed over her. What if she faltered? What if the weight of expectation was too much to bear while racing against seasoned competitors? She pushed aside the impending dread and focused instead on a critical aspect. Each adjustment she'd made would serve as a lifeline on the track, allowing her instincts to lead, but informed by her dedication to understanding the machine. Emma, ready to do a mock setup? Sarah's voice broke through her thoughts, steady and reassuring. Absolutely, Emma replied, with a determination that masked her inner turmoil. They began as they had the day before, but this time Emma's hands moved with more confidence. As she tightened bolts and adjusted the suspension, the mechanical symphony became familiar. Yet with each precise adjustment, doubt reared its ugly head. Was she merely going through the motions, or was she truly preparing for the moment when everything was put to the test? Let's go over your driving strategy, Sarah suggested, sensing the layer of apprehension clinging to Emma. Tell me what you've learned about your racing style since the last event.
Reflecting on her past experiences, Emma's mind began sorting through memories of speed, adrenaline, and painful mistakes. I relied too much on instinct instead of being deliberate. Next time, I need to balance instinct with a clear strategy. Sarah nodded, encouraging her. And what's your strategy this time? How will you apply what you've learned? With newfound clarity, Emma articulated her plan. I'll pace myself in the early laps, gauge the competition, and make strategic moves instead of going all out. Each corner is an opportunity to read the track, not just a chance to accelerate. Good. You're starting to articulate the kind of racer's mentality needed to thrive. That's growth in itself, Sarah affirmed. Yet even as Emma spoke confidently, the internal voice whispering, "But what if you fail this time?" lingered in the recesses of her mind. The tension escalated as Sarah laid out a set of challenges for Emma, drills that pushed her to react under pressure, integrating the mechanical knowledge she had gained with her driving instinct. As they raced the clock, Emma found both frustration and exhilaration in confronting her limitations. The sound of the engine roared, mirroring the tumult within her. During a particularly intensive drill, Emma miscalculated a turn, skidding off course. As she looked up, the stark reality of her mistake swept through her. The car had narrowly missed a sturdy barrier, but her heart raced, not from fear, but from a sharp jolt of realization. This can't just be about fear of what went wrong. It needs to be the fuel driving me forward. "Get back in the zone, Emma," Sarah called, noticing the shift in her demeanor. "Embrace the failure. What did you learn from that mistake?" "Timing," Emma replied, frustration morphing into determination. "I rushed, and in racing, it's not just about speed. Timing matters. I can't let my nerves dictate my moves." Returning to the car, she reinstalled her focus. With each subsequent drill, she learned and adapted. Her body moved fluidly, her instincts sharper and more precise. The confidence she yearned for began to build, blending seamlessly with the raw understanding of her vehicle. In this dance of self-discovery, she was evolving. But just as clarity emerged, that nagging question returned. Would this growth withstand the pressure of competition? As she ran through her checklist, she pondered whether her new knowledge could shield her from the inevitable chaos of racing. With each passing day, the race grew closer, paired with a sharp crescendo of fears and aspirations. Would she make it back to the starting line renewed, or wilt under the weight of expectations? The moment loomed large, and for Emma, another question evolved. What price would she be willing to pay to uncover who she truly was behind the wheel? The sun hung low on race day, casting long shadows across the circuit.
Emma stood before her newly adjusted car, each curve and bolt a testament to her dedication and the grueling work that had led her here. The atmosphere crackled with anticipation, thick with the scent of gasoline and adrenaline. She could feel her heart pounding in sync with the rhythm of the crowd, an audience waiting in eager silence for the engines to roar to life. "Remember, keep your focus sharp," Sarah said, her eyes fixed on Emma with a blend of encouragement and intensity. "Those around you will want to rattle you. Let your confidence shine through every lap you take." Emma nodded, her resolve solidifying. The inner voice of doubt that once echoed through her mind had been replaced with a growing sense of purpose. She had faced the tempest of her fears, peeled back layers of self-doubt, and stood on the precipice of redefining not just her racing career, but her entire identity. The race began, and Emma leaned into her car, absorbing the energy of the moment. As the flag dropped, the engines fired up in a thunderous roar, and she launched forward to the pulsating rhythm of the circuit. Each lap was a conscious choice. With newfound clarity, Emma navigated the twists and turns, absorbing every nuance of her racing style and the dynamics of her car. The control she exhibited now stemmed not just from instinct, but from a deep understanding. The realization that every twitch of the steering wheel, every press of the accelerator mattered. But just as Sarah had cautioned, the boys of the circuit were eager to judge, and Jake was a looming presence in her rearview mirror. At first, it was easy to slip back into old habits. She felt the pressure rise as their cars surged, jockeying for position. But Emma pushed through, channeling her father's words to concentrate on her own path. "Stay focused," she whispered to herself. The sound of her own voice grounded her amidst the chaos, a mantra against the onslaught of their competitive banter. On the third lap, Emma found herself neck and neck with Jake. Instead of faltering, she recognized it as an opportunity to test her resolve. She recalled the misalignment from the last race, the moment when she had fluffed her rhythm. This time, however, she embraced the challenge. Fueled by adrenaline, she pushed the car faster, carving strategically closer to the turn. The rear axle flared, but she held firm, compensating for the shift with a subtle adjustment to her steering. It felt electric, the very metal of her car thrumming in harmony with her intuition. With each moment passing, she realized that she wasn't just racing against Jake. She was racing against the shadows of her own past, shattering the misconceptions and expectations that had enveloped her for so long. As they exited the turn, Emma surged ahead, her determined focus yielding results. She felt a solid confidence building within her, a stark contrast to the wavering uncertainties that previously haunted her racing journeys.
There was no longing for validation. This was a quest for self-mastery, a committed dialogue with her ambitions. By the final lap, Emma cruised onto the straightaway, heart swelling with the knowledge that victory was within reach. As she crossed the finish line with the checkered flag waving in triumph, the deafening cheers of the crowd ignited a storm of realization. She had done it, not just won the race, but conquered the shadows that lay within.
Once out of the car, she was met with an explosion of claps and cheers. And in that moment, Emma understood it was not just her racing skills that were being recognized, but the transformation she had undergone in her commitment to overcome her fears. "Congratulations, Emma!" Sarah embraced her, pride shining in her eyes. "You showed everyone who you are." Tears prickled at the corners of Emma's eyes, not from joy alone, but from the profound sense of affirmation she felt. She had faced off against her insecurities, dismantled the doubts that had held her back, and emerged stronger, unapologetically herself. In this victory, Emma had solidified her position, not just as a mechanic, but as a racer, a woman defying odds and reimagining her narrative. The path ahead stood bright and inviting, and for the first time, Emma realized how exhilarating embracing uncertainty could be. Each race would bring new lessons, and she was now equipped to learn, grow, and thrive, hand in hand with her craft. Feeling the electric thrill of her triumph surge through her veins, Emma turned to Sarah with renewed vigor. "Let's continue the journey. There's more to learn, and I'm ready." Emma had conquered not just the track, but herself, and as she stepped into the next chapter of her journey, she craved the challenge waiting to be embraced. What arose from this moment, this personal achievement, was a recognition that the essence of growth lay not in perfection, but in resilience and the courage to rise again and again. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and allow these incredible stories of personal overcoming to reach those who need it most. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending below. Your input matters. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let's spread the inspiration.